But when you were saying about, it's different when people are saying really offensive things that are threatening other people. I do think on social media, I use Twitter a lot, and I know it's called X, but I still call it Twitter. You get tired after a bit because there's so much of it. You used to report it, and now because I've reported stuff, and it always 99% of the time it comes back and says, we don't think that this is violating the rules, and then you go, well, what is then?
Yeah.
And I think it's a worry that if the lines, we've got to have some kind of lines, and they seem to be just blurring and blurring and blurring. Whether that's, they're calling that free speech, I don't know why it's getting like that. But you become used to seeing these terrible things. Terrible Islamophobia. I mean, just awful. Like it's totally acceptable. Like that is, that's not offensive anymore. Doesn't everybody think that? It almost feels like that, really.
Well,
that's run of the mill. That's mainstream.
Yeah. When you go onto local groups in Facebook, for example, representing, areas that we know, really everything gets where people have always got on together, really traditionally. And for some reason this year even, it seems to be very, very close in terms of time, but it's almost like lots of people from nowhere have come up, decided they're going to jump on every story possible, even what you think was a completely unrelated story, and make it around race, but not just about race, about Muslim people.
And immigration and kind of the boats, refugees.
Exactly, yes.
I agree with you. Every story, I've read terrible things about the bin strike.
The St Patrick's Day parade was also made into a big, it's obviously due to Islam, and it wouldn't happen if it was people doing something to do with Ramadan, and the most obscure things.
And I agree, it almost feels like there's a department and they run all the stories through it, and they go, how can we do this sort of anti-Islam approach to this? And I think there probably is one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it must be coordinated from somewhere.
It will be coordinated
abroad, or by, I don't know, I don't want to speculate, but I know a lot of people in this area have never heard any of these names that have suddenly popped up.
I know what you mean. And, it does feel like it's a coordinated campaign.
Yeah, yeah. And people are not. I think the intention is to be unchallenged, because there's so many people with this idea of posting this stuff, that those of us who would normally just write around what's happening locally and so on, we're too intimidated, really, to counter this, because there's so much abuse then.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, for me, it isn't intimidation, it's more sheer quantity.
Yeah.
You don't know where to start with it, and the normal channels like reporting it don't seem to take it so seriously. So I think it's probably feeling powerless and slightly overwhelmed by it. Yeah, and just knowing you don't know what to do about it, really.
Yeah. No, you've expressed that very well. That's exactly how I feel. I saw some things like this actually this morning, and it was about 20 people who were making these sorts of comments about a very innocent little thing about a shop in Moseley. And there's so much of it that you thought, well, I'm not going to put the one thing on where you've got this whole...
That's right, you put the one thing on.
Yeah, and as you said, the one dissenting voice. It's very difficult to do that when you can see all of this outright racism,
I think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting why we don't speak. There's also that sense that you really want to say something that's going to make a difference. So you try and really think it through. What could I say that would really get people to think? You can't always do that.
What did people say from your research, Janice?
I've only just started doing it. Really.
Okay.
I've only just started, so I couldn't really. This is the first time I've really spoken about this particular stuff that we're talking about, which is this every story being looked at from an anti-Islamic or an anti-refugee. I know those are completely different things.
But they're bundled into one thing,
I
aren't they?
know.
That's the issue.
It's absolutely bundled
Mm.
all in, and everything's been looked through this lens, and any story that comes out, I just think it's overwhelming, all that.
Mm. But there needs to be some change.
Right, okay, yeah, so what's it going to be? You've got to think positively, because it does feel like it's a bit of a tsunami kind of effect at the moment.
I think we'll have to think of the way to combat this, Janice. Maybe we could start our own
There's some great
group.
there's some really good, going back to comedy, there's a great comedian called Tez Ilyas, who's a practicing Muslim, and he's really clever and brilliant, and I'm pretty sure he'll be doing something about this, saying this is our fault again. I'm sure he'll be doing stuff. So, and he's very popular and he's very brilliant. So I think there is a role for, going back to the sort of role for comedy, to point out the ludicrousness, because it is ludicrous. Bring everything down to that. The St. Patrick's Parade, the corner shop, the bin strike, you know, everything, the bad weather.
Oh, yeah, on the bin strike as well, which, you know, has dominated Birmingham press for some months. Yeah. So many people, when I do a lot of hiking, and so many people I was hiking with would say, oh, it's in certain areas, so neither, you know, because they don't want to say it's in, you know, the people involved, the Asian areas, because, you know, that's what they mean, but they don't want to offend me. None of them is considered. In fact, I don't think much of the press has considered either that in areas, you know, the high Asian percentage areas of Birmingham, there's a much higher density of housing.
Yes, yeah.
So why nobody's noticed this practical thing that, you know, if there's more people living there, there's going to be more rubbish generated, you know, more black bin bags.
And also, you know, people in areas like Solihull, Birmingham, I'm not sure, it might not be. But some areas I've noticed have got no rubbish. It's because they've complained, or they've got great big cars, and they pick it up and they take it to the tip, or they go and fly tip it somewhere.
Yeah, and there's people living, like 3 people living in a detached house that occupies a certain area are going to generate less trash per cubic meter than several people living in a small terraced house, which is, you know, the other type of area. So, you know, there doesn't seem to be any thought put into this, just a reaction of, oh, let's just, you know, blame this community and say that they are dirty and, you know, we don't, you know, they're. So
it's crazy.
I just think it's fascinating that now there's so much that is driving this agenda. But there have been some great stories as well, which I think have been largely ignored as well, which are around people in communities where there's been a big backlog of rubbish, actually helping each other, helping other communities.
That's right.
You know, but this isn't usually
not the story that they want to tell.
Exactly, it's not what the drones are flying around Birmingham.
Why are they wanting to keep telling those stories? In whose interest is it? I find it fascinating, actually.
Well, strategic interests, I'm sure. But I just hope that it doesn't stop, you know, people coming through and speaking up. This is my hope. You know, I mean, we've been speaking about it today, rather bravely, as it turns out, probably, Janice, because it is such a almost taboo thing already.
I think you just have to follow your heart, really, about what. I think we cannot. Nothing gets better by being silent about it. And we can only really understand things by talking about stuff, really. And if there's some areas that you never talk about, then you're going to be always underdeveloped in those areas.
Yeah.
Your understanding of them, either your language, you'll find you can't talk about them because you've never talked about them. So you don't know where to begin. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think the art of debate is actually dying?
I think it feels like it is.
Yeah.
Certainly in private schools and public schools, they still pride themselves on the debating societies, don't they? And I just think that the I spoke to somebody today and she said we're being educated just enough just to do as we're told, not to question. And I think there is probably the education for everybody is probably not rigorous enough. I don't know, and I hope if anybody's watching this and they say, well, I'm working in schools and we're encouraging kids to think about this and that, and I really hope that is happening. But I'm not sure the curriculum, I don't know again. I hope that the curriculum has got room for debating ideas, because it seems to me that there's too much kind of, you're on that side and you're on that side and that's the end of it. And we just argue. And that is no good, because we just need to really listen. The biggest part of free speech is listening, actually. It isn't just somebody talking.
Yeah.
It's got to be somebody listening. So we need to learn how to listen to each other. And at my most sort of paranoid, I think that whoever this global canopy is, they don't want us listening to each other.
Absolutely.
And talking to each other.
Yeah.
Because then we begin to see that we are so connected. I've got so much in common. You know, what I call the working classes of the world, that we're just being shafted in order for these lots to just make more and more profit. So I really think it's really important that we, love thy neighbour, no, literally love thy neighbour, and look at each other, get to know each other, do things together, help each other out. Because then we become stronger then. Because divided, we're so easy to push over, aren't we? We are literally a pushover.
Yes, indeed. And it's the point that I've made in some of my videos about nostalgia being hijacked as well. I think really speaks to that point as well, that, you know, I've got a working class background, you know, but for some reason I'm not accepted as having that. And yet,
Why?
well, because of this agenda now, Janice, because until recently, I think you're right that there was a lot of working class unity, and especially in the arts and so on, and people trying to do things together across ethnicities and so on. But now, as you say, you're not allowed to do that almost, because we're supposed to be in these tribes that don't cross over.
It's a nuisance. Tribe. We are one tribe, actually. You know, we are one tribe. All this separating people off, I think, is really bad news, actually.
I'm hopeful that there will be avenues to go down, and you know, people will see beyond this. Well, that's my hope.
I hope so. The trouble is, you can only know what you've seen, and I think it's interesting, this nostalgia thing you're talking about for the past. And certainly, it's hard to separate, isn't it? Whether it's just because one's getting older and you become more romanticised about your own particular experience of life, or whether we are onto something and it's worse than it was. But they just seem to me to be, I don't know, just more of a community in terms of places to go. It could be an age thing, I don't know.
In the past?
Yeah, people going out. I can remember, you know, family weddings that I went to, or family parties where people would get up and they'd have a party piece that they would do, and this is Auntie Barbara's song that she always sings, or this is such and such a body doing his poem that he does. This could still be happening. I hope it is. And I hope people are watching this, that we still do that. It's that celebration of individuality within different age groups coming together. I don't know. It's about entertainment. It's about community singing, dancing together. It's about all those, you know, that kind of culture, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It is about
cultural activities that we do together that I really think brings people together.
There's less sharing of things, isn't there?
I think there is.
Both in your own.
There is. I don't know whether. I don't know.
Well,
it seems to be.
I think that statistically there is less. I mean, people don't go out so much, don't they?
No, they don't.
I mean,
that's why I'm talking about going out.
Yeah. partly they can't afford to go out,
No, it's too
obviously,
expensive.
so, you
It's
know,
ridiculously
it's just such a divide, isn't there? Because to go out for an evening to just a moderate thing is
expensive.
going to set people back maybe £50 or so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is unbelievable. You said to
yeah,
me, you know, decades ago, that's going to be just a normal going to the pub type thing or something. You
yeah.
know, it's hard
It's
to comprehend.
ridiculous, isn't it? But you know, but in the past, this sort of nostalgia for the past. I'm talking about, you know, when people had less money
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah,
and there was that. I think again, it's not like it's so hard to divide it all up, but I do think that there was a sense of people coming together, not in poverty, in hard times, and going around to people's houses, having house parties, having a piano in the room, you know, taking up the carpet, people dancing.
mm,
And again, I really hope that's happening. But then there's all this sort of stuff about people complaining about noise and the way the houses are built, you know, flats being built
mm,
next to venues that do live music.
yes,
And then
yeah,
the people who bought these flats going, we don't want this venue next
mm,
door to us.
mm,
And the dissenting voice belongs to those people. And the venue that did live music gets shut down. I want more live music. I want more people going out. I
yeah,
want more people getting together, dancing together, you know,
yeah, yeah,
having street park, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure it is happening in pockets. But as you said, there's less and less money. People are going out less and more fearful of their neighbours.
mm,
We're being told all the time that, you know, outside's dangerous.
yeah.
I don't think it's any more dangerous than it used to be. I really don't think so.
Well, I mean, I've been long term a big runner,
Right.
road running and so on.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, I don't do that anymore, but I did do it until recently, and I noticed this sort of gradual, oh, you should be scared of going out running, you know, and on your own. Do you do it on your own now? That you go out on your own? And I just found it extraordinary that
Yeah.
I was being encouraged to be scared,
I know they want us to be scared.
and in fact, there's this gradual encroachment, isn't it, of
Yeah.
what you're supposed to feel. So,
Yeah.
you know, which
On our freedom, actually, to live our lives, to go out into nature, into the streets, to
yeah,
bump into each other, to laugh. I think laughing is so important.
mm,
Laughing with people. You know, I think people try to give humour a bad name. So it was about having a go at somebody, being cruel. It's not at all like that.
no,
It's a celebration of the fallibilities
mm.
of humanity, you know.
Well, I've noticed that even in the everyday kind of interchange that we have with people, there's less banter. There's less, you know,
Oh,
sort of the
okay.
whole wit that you
Yeah,
express in everyday life.
yeah.
That's all become formalised into
Oh
comedy now.
God,
And
yeah.
yet, you know, I've always just been around that and done that.
Yes, and it should be there. We should be laughing, laughing at work, laughing in
Mm,
the streets,
mm,
people making each other laugh. It shouldn't just be, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
It's not just professional comedians that are funny. Everybody's funny.
yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's funny, and we should be laughing at every opportunity. I think it's an act of sort of political freedom, really, to laugh.
Absolutely.
It's really
And
important.
that's what's so insidious about it, that when it goes beyond what people are doing, you know, in the professional world or even online, and it becomes just people self-censoring themselves or not even thinking of these things, you know, maybe our brains are being changed.
Well, they might be, and I do think there might be. We're social animals, aren't we? And we need to be with each other, really.
Mm,
And I think it's got to be true that we're not seeing as much of each other with the way that work's change. You know, I know there's lots of positives about working from home, but I think there's a lot of negatives as well. Um, we need to be out and about, and eventually, if we're not seeing enough of each other
mm,
and we're not having enough of a social life, I think we will start to
mm.
change.
I mean,
I think we will change.
yeah, I think we are changing now through, you know, after COVID and
Mm.
remote work and everything. I mean, it doesn't take that long for people to become
No,
sort of a bit hermit-like,
no,
and
because
then
we can naturally do that as well, can't we?
yeah, yeah, and then you become a bit
Oh, I
worried
think
about
that's,
going out. I
I
mean,
think that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we must. I think you must know people like that. I know people like that, and then they become a bit reluctant, and then they can't have a conversation like they used to have. And
Yeah, because you're out the habit.
yeah,
And I think, with the phones and everything, it's such a comfort to look down to this controllable world, isn't it? And I find it a comfort as well, my time with my phone. And I'm somebody that does enjoy and kind of understand the value of communities talking. I know, I sometimes think, oh, I just want to go to bed and look at my phone. And it's like you say, we've got a hermit inside. Everybody's got a hermit inside them.
Yeah, it's very easy for that to come out.
We want the hermit to be bigger than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're on a mission, or you definitely are, Janice, to dismiss the hermit into
get rid of the hermit
in a box. Put the hermit in a box.
Yeah, and let's come out and throw the get the carpet up and start dancing on the floorboards.
Yeah,
absolutely. I do think it makes you feel good.
It does. Yeah, I think we should revive that, Janice.
Okay.
So with that great thought,
yeah,
possibly the most cheery thought of our conversation. Which has been a bit downbeat. I know it's not your usual,
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, I do think comedy is a very serious business, and I think there's an enjoyment in really talking about stuff. I think there's an enjoyment in true free speech, actually, that is as relaxing as a very good laugh.
Oh, definitely.
It's really important, isn't it? And
it's using your brain, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's kind of, and I know it's not what you're saying, but there's kind of, oh, sorry, it was a bit serious. Come on, bring it on. Bring on seriousness. It's really important, isn't it?
A good balance.
Yeah, that's right.
Is what we need.
Yeah.
Janice, thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, it's been a
today.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Very unexpected and brilliant things that you've shared. So, well, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and hopefully we'll talk again.
We will talk again, and thanks very much. And if anybody's out there thinking, there's more going on than you think, let us know. We want that to happen. Well, I want that to happen. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Get the pianos going.
Thank you.